Welcome to A Levels Academy Islamabad. In this video, we are going to understand what are the environmental problems and what are the types and how they can be solved. This topic is for the students of Cambridge University Press. So if you are willing to understand any of the subjects of Cambridge University Press related to environmental problems or environmental law, so in this video, I will cover all the subjects of Cambridge University Press of all the law subject, whether it's for Chinese students or for any other country. So I'm going to start this topic. Before starting the topic, I would want to share that if any of you want to purchase these notes online, I have a website and the website link is going to be added in the description of this video. You just have to click on the description and you will see a website link. That link will contain all the solved papers of different subjects, and I'm not only going to make for Chinese, but I'm going to make it for all the countries out there of the law subjects. Okay, so you can just go there and grab all the papers you want or all the solved answers. Okay, so I'm going to start this video. China faces serious environmental problems due to its rapid industrial growth, urbanization, and pollution increase. So basically in this topic, the environmental problem and legal responses in China, we know that China is the country that is the most fastest developing countries. And obviously if it's a fastest developing country, it also has a lot of industries in it. So due to the industrial growth, it also has pollution as well. So China is currently facing the industrial pollution currently. The government has responded with laws and policies to control pollutions and protect nature. So basically, the industries that are available in China right now are producing harmful pollution in the environment. So the government in China is making different laws to control these industries and the pollution. So how the government will control it, we will understand this from the other headings. Below is the detailed explanation of Chinese environmental crisis and legal responses. So basically the other headings that are going to come, those all headings are basically the solutions of environmental problems and how these environmental problems are caused. Everything is discussed in the other headings. So we will move on to the next headings. The first heading is China's environmental crisis. China's environmental crisis has been severely affected by industrial pollution, overuse of natural resources, and waste production. So basically, how this environment is caused? This environment is caused because there is a heavy use of industries. Because of the industry's presence and the use, there is a pollution in the environment. Besides this, we can also see the lot of use of natural resources. Obviously, there are a lot of people, everyone want to use natural resources. So a lot of consumption of natural resources is also a reason of environmental pollution. And we can also see waste production. A lot of waste production is a reason as well of this pollution as well. Okay, this environmental issues threatens public health, biodiversity, and the economic growth. So basically, if you face environmental issues, then this environmental issue will ultimately cause public health. That means that public that is living in a country will suffer from health problems as well as biodiversity and economic growth as well. Let's move on to the next heading. Next heading is the air pollution. Air pollution is the main type of environmental law. So what is air pollution? So you are seeing a lot of Chinese people covering their faces in this picture, right? Why are they covering? Because behind them are few industries that are producing harmful gases. Those harmful gases are in the air, and those harmful gases goes inside to our body through our nose, because we are inhaling that air that contains those harmful gases that we are seeing over here. Air pollution is a major problem in China, mainly caused by industrial emissions, vehicle exhaust, and coal burning power plants. So basically, these air pollutions are caused by industrial emissions as well as the vehicle exhaust and the coal burning. So we will discuss this detail in the other headings. Causes of air pollution. So what are the causes of air pollution? We have already discussed it earlier, but now I will discuss it in more detail. So the first cause is the coil burning. Many power plants in China use coil, releasing harmful gases into air. So basically, there are a lot of industries. You can see a lot of industries over here. So here you can see the people are covering their faces with masks and some tissues because there are industries that are producing a lot of harmful gases because all of these industries are using coal, and those coal use makes those industries produce a lot of harmful gases in air. So this is also cause of air pollution. Besides this, factories release smoke and toxic gases including sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides and NOx. So basically, the industries also produce the other types of gases that are sulfur dioxide and the nitrogen gas as well that is dangerous for our body. Besides this, we find vehicle pollutions as well. The increasing numbers of cars contribute to smoke and poor air quality. So you are seeing a man covering his face because behind him are few cars that are producing a lot of smoke. You can see a lot of the gas coming out from the car. This gas that is coming out of a car from the exhaust is a very toxic gas for our bodies. So these are the three kinds. We see that these are the three things that produce a lot of harmful gas in the environment. So what are the effects of these air pollution? So these air pollution we suffer, what are the effects on them, on our bodies? We will see health issues, causes in respiratory diseases like asthma, cancer, and heart problems. So the first problem we face is asthma, lung problems, asthma, and heart problems. So if you are in an area where there are a lot of toxic gases in the air, then we will suffer lung issues, heartaches, as well as asthma. Besides this, what we will face? Cities like Beijing often experience thick smoke, reducing visibility. So this is the city of Beijing, and you can barely see that people can see each other because the industries are producing a lot of smoke that you could not see a person, you could not see the buildings properly. So this is the also cause of air pollution because the visibility is reduced, and in the cars that are the cars that are driving in the Beijing area will ultimately get crashed because they cannot see each other and the people cannot see each other, and there's a lot of pollution and smoke in the environment. So there's very less visibility, we cannot see anything. Climate change. Greenhouse gases from industries contribute to global warming. So you can see industries over here producing harmful gases. Those harmful gases are causing a lot of heat. So the sun is going to produce a lot of heat because of the harmful gases. What will happen then after the gas are contributing to increasing the heat? So what will happen is that the glaciers, the snow will melt faster, and the animals that are living in the snowy area will get affected. Not only those, but normal human beings will also be affected with global warming. So if there's a global warming that is caused by industry, will ultimately increase the amount of heat for us as well, and we cannot live in such a hot weather that is caused by global warming. Why it is caused? Because of the presence of industrial air pollution. So what are the government measures? How will government help us to reduce these things? Air pollution prevention and control actions. So the government will do preventions and control these actions. How? We will see. Limit industries emission and promote clean energy. So basically the government will do is that the government will limit the industrial emissions and will promote them to produce only the clean energy, not to release the harmful gases. Okay. Vehicle restrictions. Some cities limit car use certain days to reduce pollution. So basically the government will make laws in some cities of China in order to reduce the amount of car use in that locality. So if the car is being used less in a particular city, then those cars will produce less toxic gases for the air. So this is how the government will help us. And The government shall make investment in renewable energies. China is developing solar and wind power to reduce coal use. So basically, this is how the government will work, because the government will make a lot of solar panels so that a lot of people can afford them, and reduce the price of solar panels so that a lot of people can use it and the industries can use it. China will also make the wind pipes that will work on winds, so that the industries don't need to use coal to run their factories or industries. If they have the wind pipes, these connected, so the industries can use these wind, what are they called, wind tribunals. Now they are called as solar wind or wind power. Okay, so basically these are the solar winds. So if the industries are going to use the solar wind, so they don't have to use coal. So if they're using these, so they will not, remove all the toxic gas in the environment. And besides this, if these industries or factories are using these solar panels, so what will happen is that if they're using these solar panels, they will not produce any kind of a toxic gas, and those toxic gas will not go outside the environment. So this is how the government will contribute in cleaning the air. The water crisis. Now the next type of pollution is the water crisis. So how water is polluted, how it will affect the environment. So all of this is covered in this topic. The water crisis, water pollution and water storage. Water pollution and water scarcity are serious problem affecting both urban and rural areas in China. So basically you see an image here. In this image, a human being is really sad because the water over here is polluted. It contains a lot of dirt, a lot of bottle, including the industrial waste as well. So basically this water becomes toxic for human beings as well as for plants and for the animals. So this is called water problem or water crisis. Now how these problems are caused and how they can be solved, we will discuss this in this heading. Causes of water pollution. Number one is the industrial waste. Factories dump toxic chemicals into rivers and lakes. So the first causes the industrial waste. So basically the industries or the factories, how they produce pollution. So basically these industries dump toxic chemicals into the rivers or lakes. So you have a picture over here. You can see these industries are working and they are using these pipes to throw all the waste in the river. So you can see the river is getting polluted with this. Let's see the other example, agriculture runoffs. Pesticides and fertilizers from farms contaminates waste. So basically you're seeing another image over here. We have few pesticides. These pesticides that farmers are using are, toxic for the river, and these pesticides are going inside the water or lake and toxic and making the water very, very, very toxic. Sewage and domestic waste. Untreated water waste from homes pollutes the sources. So basically you're seeing a lot of houses and homes. So these houses over here are, emitting or releasing toxic waste from their houses to the river. And what will happen is the river will get polluted. So all of these are basically the causes of water pollution. So now we will see how these toxic water pollutions will cause more and more waste. Cause of water storage, overuse of water. So basically the other headings indicates that excessive use for agriculture and industrial reduces water availability. So basically if we use a lot of water, so even though farmers also use a lot of water, in both ways the water amount is going to be reduced, so there will be only left toxic water. So the fresh and clean water will get reduced, and due to this reason we will face toxic environmental pollution of water. Uneven water distribution. Northern China has less water compared to the south. So basically the northern China has a lot of less amount of water. That's the reason they face a lot of water pollution. Climate change. Changing weather patterns lead to drought and water scarcity. So basically, the factories will produce different toxic gases. Those toxic gases will go to the air and produce different kind of clouds, and those clouds will produce acid rain. So those acid rain is dangerous for our soil and for the water as well. So the water that is coming out of the rain that is produced because of those toxic air pollution caused by the factories will ultimately make acid rain, and the water will be acidic, and it is not good for our lands. And besides this, this water will not grow the crops. Even if it will grow, the crops or the vegetables will be dangerous for our health because they will contain toxic productions, okay, the toxic products. So the next heading is government responses. So how will government respond to such things? South North Water Transfer Project, move water from southern rivers to dry northern regions. So basically the dry northern areas in China is suffering. So how government will help? Government will make methods to transfer good water availability to the other place of northern side. Impose fines to companies that pollute water. So basically the companies or industries that are producing harmful gases or harmful water, basically these things should be banned by the government. So the government should make penalties or laws that must contain the fine for companies and industries, because these companies and industries are basically polluting the water. So the government will take such steps. Encouraging water conservations, promote effective water use in agriculture and industrial use. So basically the government will make sure that the industries will use water and also produce water in a good way and not damage the other water by wasting their toxic things in the water. Besides this, the farmers that are using toxic pesticides or whatever they're using, and they will motivate them to use water, but also motivate them to clean the water that is produced. Okay, so the government will take necessary steps for these things as well, and these are only 3 points. You can include more of your own personal information as well in this point. Soil contamination. So in the next setting is basically about soil contamination. Soil pollution is another reason or another serious issue caused by industrial waste, mining, and excessive use of chemical in farming. So basically you're seeing a human being over here throwing or putting some chemical in the soil. So the soil is getting polluted and producing harmful vegetables for us. This is how the soil contamination is working. So how soil contamination is caused? First reason is heavy metal from the factories, lead, mercury, and contaminates farmland. So basically these harmful gases are going inside the soil and producing a very toxic vegetables for us, and some vegetable might not grow because of the toxic soil. So how this soil gets toxic? Because of the presence of industry's presence is going to pollute the soil. Pesticides and fertilizers, harmful chemical reduce soil quantity and enter the food chain. So basically the pesticides used and the fertilizers used in the farm area, so these harmful chemicals that are put inside the soil will ultimately make the soil very, very toxic, and that soil will produce toxic vegetables and fruits. So pesticides that are harmful, and these can also produce harmful soil and harmful vegetables for us. Illegal dumping of waste. Factories and construction sites dump toxic material to soil. So the factories may put toxic chemicals in the soil, just like this man is putting some toxic thing in the soil. This is just the same way chemicals of the industries will also go inside the soil. Effects of soil contamination. So what the effect we will see from soil contamination? Unsafe food production. Polluted soil led to toxic crops harming harmful waste. So you're seeing these crops are getting dead, and some crops that are already grown, these crops are toxic for our health because these crops are not grown in a clean soil. Instead, these are grown in a very, very dangerous soil that contains toxic things in it. So it will affect our body health, Loss of farmland. Contempt land cannot use for farmland. So basically, such type of land that contains toxic soil cannot be used for farming, because even if a farmer wants to use it, the land will not grow crops because the land contains toxic chemicals that will not produce crops for them. But if they will produce crop, those crops will be really dangerous for our health, because those crops, that means those vegetables that are growing, will not be eatable for a human body. Even if a human will eat it, that human being might die or may suffer from dangerous diseases. Groundwater pollution. Pollutants seep into underground water source. So basically, there are few groundwater pollutions as well, because there are a lot of things people are producing that are going inside the soil, and that thing that is going inside the soil is polluting the whole soil area, not only the one. So basically, I'm going to make it easier for you to understand. So basically, I'm going to make a land over here. So this land is cut into few pieces, okay? If this land, that means the soil, is getting polluted because of the industry, so the pollution is not going to stay on the same place, but the pollution may travel to the other soil as well. This is what is written here. So basically, if the soil gets polluted from one side, it can, travel the pollution will travel to other soils as well, okay? So this is what is written, and it is very dangerous. What are the government actions? Soil pollution prevention actions plan. So government will make a soil pollution prevention action plan that will focus on cleaning up the contaminated land. So the lands that are being polluted will be cleaned by the government's action. Monitoring and testing programs, regular checks on soil quality to prevent further pollution. So the government's officers will regularly check the pollution inside the soil to know that is it good or bad. So if they will check it regularly, and then the industries will be cautioned and know that the government is checking up on them, so they will not throw any kind of a dangerous chemical on the soil. Strict regulations on pesticides and industrial waste, control chemical use in agricultural industry. So basically, the government will make strict rules on the pesticide as well as on industrial waste, because if industries are throwing any kind of a waste on the soil, they will get penalty and have to give fine. And if any kind of a farmer is putting any kind of a dangerous pesticide in the soil, or putting any kind of a dangerous pesticide in the soil, he will also get penalties from the government. So these are the things that the governments are going to do to prevent these kind of a dangerous toxic things. Other thing is the waste problems. So in China, there is a huge amount of waste that is dumped, and that waste is also a huge pollution for us. China produces a huge amount of waste due to its large population and rapid economical growth. So you are seeing a lot of people over here holding a lot of junk in their hands and throwing the junk, and that junk is being collected like that. So this junk over here is the pollution. It will contain different kind of a toxic waste from a human body. It will contain toxic waste of the industries and from different places. So the toxic waste contains different negative things in it, and it can obviously pollute the environment. The smell of the garbage will pollute the environment and can cause a lot of diseases to a human body. Types of waste. So we will know what are the types of waste we see. So number one is the household waste. The household waste contains plastics, food waste such as raw apple or some kind of a eaten apple that we throw in the dustbin, or any kind of a food that is the leftover food we throw in the dustbin. So all of these food is a waste food. Packaging materials from the daily life or packaging material we use, and it can also be dumped into the waste. So all of this thing is basically the household waste that is dumped over here in this place. Besides this, we have industrial waste as well, chemicals, metals, and toxic metals from factories. So in this bundle of waste, there are also chemical waste as well, industrial waste as well. Besides this, we will also find electronic waste such as the e-waste. They are called old computers, mobile phones, and batteries. In this waste, we will also find different batteries or dead mobile phones or broken mobile phones and laptops. So all of this waste is going to cause a lot of diseases because this waste will produce different different smells are going to be produced by this waste and goes inside to the human body and make them suffer from different health problems. Consequences of excessive waste. So what are the consequences? Land pollution. Waste disposal site pollute the land. So obviously there's a lot of pollution, just like this in the image. If there's a lot of pollution or waste collected in a particular place, what will happen is that the soil of that place will get dirty, and you cannot use a soil again because it will contain a lot of waste material as well. Besides this, we will have health hazards. Toxic waste leads to disease and infection. Obviously, if you are living in a place where you're near or close to a big giant waste area, so if you're close to a place like this, you will ultimately suffer from diseases because the smell, the bacteria are going to go inside to your body, and those bacteria and everything is going to pollute your body and make you suffer from different diseases. Marine pollutions. Plastic waste end up in oceans, harming marine life. So obviously you're seeing a lot of bundle of waste here. So a lot of bundle of waste like this is also covering the land as the water as well. So half of the dirt and the waste is going to the rivers, and it will also trouble the marine life. The fishes will get troubled because their faces and their bodies will always get stuck with bottles and the plastic bags. So obviously if these things are not controlled, it can pollute the water, it can pollute the land, it can pollute a human body's life. What are the government solutions? What will government take actions on it? Waste sorting and recycling problems. Promote separation and reusing wastage. So basically government will make solutions to promote the separating of the waste and reusing the waste so that they cannot pollute. So basically if government is doing this, let me give you an example what is government is doing here. So basically there are plastic bottle, okay, so there's a lot of collection of plastic bottles separately, okay, they are not mixed with the other waste. If they're collected separately in a dustbin, only the plastic bottles are separated, so these plastic bottles can be reused and they will not be used in the waste, and it will not cause any harm. So this is how the government will take action. So if the waste is being disposed separately, so it will be reused separately, okay, so it will not cause any kind of a negative impact on our body. It will not damage any soil, it will not damage the airs, it will not damage any kind of a river. Ban on single-use plastics reduces plastic waste in cities. So basically the government should take measures in reducing the use of plastic waste in cities and ban those plastic waste as well, because if government is producing any kind of a plastic, so people will purchase it and throw it, and the waste will be a lot, and it will be difficult for the government to reduce this kind of a waste. So if the government itself is not producing any kind of a plastic bag and prohibit others from making it, ultimately plastic bag usage will be reduced and there will be less amount of garbage collected in the plastic bag, and plastic bag will not be dumped in the waste. This is how it will help. Stricter waste management laws, fines and penalties for illegally dumping. So if there's a human being who is illegally throwing a lot of plastic bags and making the area super dirty and throwing any kind of a waste in water or in soil or polluting the air, so this type of a person who's polluting the area will get fine and penalties, and that person has to pay a lot of fine for doing such actions. So this is how government will help us. Next heading is the cost of pollution. Pollution in China is serious economic and social cost. So basically if there's a pollution, it will obviously ultimately lead to a lot of cost. Basically if you are trying to reduce the amount of pollution, you have to invest a lot of money to remove that pollution. So if there's a lot of pollution, it will ultimately make your life difficult because you have to give a lot of money to someone to reduce the amount of wastage on your place and clean the area. So economical costs, health expenses, treatment of pollution related to disease increase medical costs. Obviously, if someone who is living in a place where there's a lot of pollution will get affected from it, and that person has to go to hospital, and the hospital expenses are very very difficult for that person to fulfill. This is the reason that will affect their health and life. Damage to agriculture. Soil and waste pollution reduces food production. Obviously, the food production will be reduced because the soil is dirty. If the soil is dirty because of the industrial waste is put inside of the soil, and the soil is dirty, then the food will not grow properly, and it will reduce the amount of food, and everyone will want to have more amount of food, but that food is not growing. So if that food is not growing, then the amount of food will be increased. That means the amount of the food prices will be increased, not the food is increasing. Obviously, the food is not increasing because the soil is dirty. So the people will do is that they will increase the amount of the price of the food. So this is also not a good thing, because if the soil is not good, it will not produce a lot of vegetables that will ultimately increase the price of the food, and this is how it will be very very difficult for the poor people to afford vegetables and crops. Environmental cleanup cost. Cleaning up polluted areas, water, and land requires large governmental spreading. So basically, if there's a huge place or a huge city that is polluted, so obviously government has to spend a lot of millions of dollars to clean that area. So this is also a big problem we see. Social costs. Public protests. People demand actions against pollution. So obviously there are a lot of people that are going on roads doing protests against pollution. So government also face these kind of problems as well. Declining quality of life. Poor air, water quality make cities less livable. Obviously, if there's a poor air in the place, including the poor water quality, people will not want to live in that place and will try to move out. So this is also not a good thing for them. International pressure. Other countries urge China to reduce pollution. So obviously, if China is making a lot of dirty air, a lot of dirty things, so the other countries will complain China to stop doing such things. So China also undergoes international pressure as well. Sources of environmental laws. China has developed strong legal system to tackle environmental problems. So in these sources, you have to write that Chinese people, the government of China has developed few legal systems that contains the environmental laws as well. So the environmental laws included many penalties for the people who will commit crimes, such as crimes like throwing chemical waste in the river. The people who are committing such crimes are known as polluters. So these polluters who are polluting the environment, whether the air environment, whether it is the river environment or soil, if they pollute any of these, they will get penalties. Why? Because the Chinese government have made environmental laws and few other laws in order to control such situation. This is why we find the sources. So the sources itself is the main help for us to solve this situation, because if someone out there who wants to solve this problem, that person needs to open environmental laws. That environmental laws may contain everything related to environment. If anyone harms the environment, then that person will get penalty. Chinese Constitution. The Chinese Constitution states that environmental protection is the responsibility of government and all citizens. So basically, in the China's Constitution, Chinese people have strictly included that environmental protection is very, very important, and every individual who is living in China is responsible to clean their environment, and they should not pollute their environment, whether it is the air environment, whether it is the water, whether it is the soil. So they have to protect all of these. So this is how the Chinese people have protected their environment. Environmental statutes. Laws like the Environmental Protection Law set rules for pollution control and conservation. So basically in China, there are a few other laws such as the Environmental Protection Laws. These laws are made in order to control the pollution, whether it is the air pollution, soil pollution or water pollution. Any of these pollution can be controlled if these environmental protection laws are followed accurately. Next heading is other relevant statutes. Statutes is basically laws. Okay, so the other relevant laws are water laws, air pollution preventive laws. Okay, so these other laws were also made because this one law, that is environmental protection laws, was not enough to control the pollution. So the Chinese people and the government, they intentionally made separate laws for water and for air pollution as well, in order to protect the air from being dirty for people, in order to protect the water as well. So they have made both of the laws separately, so that if anyone pollutes water or the air, they will get penalties as well. State regulation and administrative rules. Government agencies issue regulations to implement environmental laws. So basically the government itself try to regulate and implement environmental laws on people. If they do not follow these laws, they will get penalty, because a lot of people think that environmental laws are not effective. So basically people will think that environmental law is not a serious one and no one will obey it. So that's the reason government itself made an agency or an authority separately, in order to force people to follow the environmental laws, because if these environmental laws are implemented on the people, then they will know that this environmental law is a serious law and we should also obey it, and we should not pollute the environment. Next heading is judicial interpretation. Chinese courts provide legal interpretation to ensure proper enforcement of environmental laws. Chinese courts itself also play a very important role in order to help and protect the environmental laws. So these courts will make few interpretations and precedents or any kind of a decision based on these environmental laws to be protected. Next heading is local regulations. Different provinces and cities make their own environmental rules based on local needs. So China's country also have different cities in it, and those cities will also have their own separate rules to protect the environmental laws. This is how China is trying to protect the environment. Next heading is international environmental treaties. China is a part of global agreement like the Paris Climate Agreement to fight climate change. China itself is also participating in the Paris Climate Agreement as well, because they have made an agreement in order to control the climate system in other countries. So if China itself is a part of such act, then they also should protect the same environment in their own country as well. Next heading is state and the party policies and plans. The Chinese government and the Communist Party set long-term strategies to improve environmental protection. So this line means the Chinese government, including the Communist Party, both are trying to make a long-term strategies to improve the environmental protection. Short-term strategies means such strategies are those strategies in which there's only a smaller solution to solve the environmental problem. But in the long-term strategies, the environmental protection can be saved for a longer term. For a longer period, the environment shall remain protected. Next heading is the 5-year plans and on national economic and social development. Every 5 years, the government makes a plan for the economy and society, including environmental protection. So basically, it's not like the government shall make the environmental protection rule only for once and then leave it. No, but every 5 years, the government will try their best in order to protect the environment of their location or of all the Chinese places. Recent plans focus on green energy, pollution control, and conservation. Currently, in 2025 or in the past years, China is trying to focus more on the green energy as well as the pollution control and conservation. So they're trying their best to protect the environment from these type of pollutions. Party policies jointly promulgated with the state council, the Communist Party and the state council, introduce policies to balance economic growth with the environmental protection. So the communist and the state council both are trying their best to introduce different policies. Policies are such as some rules. So these both are trying to make some rules or policies so that the economic growth can be balanced with the environmental protection, because for doing the environmental protection a lot of money is being used in order to protect the environment. So these two authorities are trying their best to control the environment with the economic growth, because China does not want to decrease the economy, because they are trying to protect the environment. So they're trying their best to increase the economy while making the environment very good. They aim to reduce carbon emissions, protect forest, and improve waste management. So currently they're trying to make sure that the carbon emission is being decreased from the industries, protect the forest. If the forests and the trees are being cut down, those people are going to be fined and they will be imprisoned. So China is trying their best to protect the forests and the trees, and trying to make sure that they improve the waste management, the waste that is coming out of the houses or any places that is being used in throwing out waste. So China is trying their best to manage that waste so that it doesn't pollute the environment. In the conclusion, China faced severe environmental challenges including air pollution, water crisis, soil contamination, and waste management. So the above headings you have studied are going to be including in the conclusion. So all of the things we have studied earlier shall be written in the first line. These issues affect public health, the economy, and the global climate change. So these issues that we have studied earlier are really dangerous for our public health, including for our economy as well as for our global climate. In response, China has developed strict environmental laws, regulations, and policies. So basically, China is making different laws in order to protect the environmental condition. The government continues to implement long-term strategies to promote sustainability and reduce pollution. So the government is trying to make laws as well as different strategies or different things in order to control the pollution in the environment. This is how China is working on the environmental laws.